Hi, actually with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the subject of this compensatory or restorative justice that's sweeping or has swept the Western world and has infected all parts of the legal, the legal fraternity, the many, if not nearly all, of the courts now, district attorneys, prosecutors' departments, and so on. So the general architecture of this is that certain communities that have all been imported into the West, by the way, they're not, definitely not indigenous. All these communities are marginalised and have been marginalised, or historically marginalised, as they say, and that they therefore are entitled to compensatory or restorative justice, which is another way of saying compensation at various levels. Now, compensation could be race, gender quotas to give people jobs or give them university courses or access to anything. But it's to say, well, this community, this is an ideological sort of take on it, of course, but this community has been marginalised for however long. Therefore, good thinking, right thinking folks today have to make sure these people receive restorative justice. Now that effectively means an ideological court and also means compensation and so on through various means. Compensation could be giving a low IQ student with an IQ of -5 million, giving them a gig on a law course at a decent university, and then guaranteeing them a law degree, even though they haven't come anywhere near passing. This is seen in the wider scheme of things as restorative justice. How they see that, I mean, they can't stray even 1 inch outside of the ideological framework, because as a practical matter of reality, it's lunacy on steroids. But as an ideological issue, it's something they adhere to. Even people in the United States that are viewed as great legal minds are signing on or have signed on for this marginalised community restorative justice crap, and are openly pushing it. Now, the recent Supreme Court decision in the United States, of course, said that this affirmative action, race, gender quota stuff was illegal. That because in order to discriminate in favour of one group, you have to discriminate against another group. And white people and of course some Asian students were being discriminated against in order to make places for other groups. So it was insane to begin with, and is now. And you've got to wonder how it managed to get as far as it has in the universities, and why there was so very little pushback, and why this discrimination nonsense, against white people and Asians went on for the best part of 50 years. In fact, if it wasn't for the discrimination against the Asian students, who were brown, of course, if it wasn't the discrimination against them, I doubt it would have ever made it into the Supreme Court. If it was only discrimination against white people, I think they'd have just let it pass. Anyway, I just want to sort of look at how these people are getting around it. So to them, the ideology is everything, that they can't allow the Supreme Court. Now, the white man's law is not legitimate anyway. Nothing about white society is legitimate in its social structure, its legal structure. It's all illegitimate. Well, why don't all these white people who are pushing it quit their jobs and live on the street as saying, oh, no, we're right-thinking people. We have the right. It's only the other people. Everyone else is a Nazi, but not us. So, okay. Now, they're looking at all various means of how to get around this Supreme Court ruling so they can continue uninterrupted with their social engineering and pretend to be observing the letter of the law. So if you look at the sort of stuff that I've seen some of these things. Well, the Supreme Court's not legitimate anyway because the judges on there were appointed by Trump. That makes that illegitimate. Well, why then aren't the courts that have radical activist leftists on there? Why aren't they illegitimate? No. They're the proper courts. They're the activist courts. It's the courts that rely on the law and facts and evidence and constitution. they're the ones, because the whole white edifice is illegitimate. Therefore, they're illegitimate. So anyone that's not an activist, anyone who doesn't hate the white system and believe it to be illegitimate, anyone who doesn't is a Nazi. Therefore, they're illegitimate. So they can these lunatics can invent this, going through their ideological sort of calisthenics and somersaulting, can declare anything that they disagree with is illegitimate and or Nazi. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about some of the methods that they're using. Now, when you're trying to do it in an underhanded way, pretend you're observing the law, but really you're doing everything you can to undermine it, then there are various means that you can do that. So, admission to a university, say to a law course, admission to a law course. So they want to continue with stacking the law course with affirmative action appointments. And this is very much a central part of the globalist project. You can have the entire legal system awash with activists. Then as a straight white male, you will know there will be no court in the land where you can go and be heard on the basis of facts and evidence. It will only be heard ideologically. As you are historically a non-marginalized person, you therefore are not entitled to the same rights as a marginalized person. You are in fact a walking, if you're a straight white male, you are the oppressor. You're a de facto fucking Nazi, for Christ's sakes. And therefore anyone else you're in legal contest with, unless they're another straight white male, then you are already the villain, the evil one that already is prejudged when you walk into the court as being the oppressor, and therefore the other party is entitled to some compensation regardless of the facts and the evidence. So, but anyway, coming back to the methodologies they use, now they're sneaky and snide in the extreme, and you see this across all things. For example, you see it in employment where a white job applicant will be required to tolerate 10 interviews plus, psych testing, plus this, plus that, plus something else. Whereas the black applicant or the non-straight white male applicant will only have to do one interview, and they can do it online. They don't even have to come in and spend the money or the time, doing the traveling. This is also, you see in things like if white job applicants are the HR, the Nazi fighters in the HR department will rigorously check the background of the straight white guy. And you said you worked there for 2 years, but really it was only 1 year, 11 months and 3.5 weeks. You lying fucking Nazi. We can't have you working here. Whereas the black guy can deny he was in prison. Turns out he was, but that's okay. You're a marginalized group, and there's compensation for your marginalization. You can tell as many lies as you want, that type of thing. So those things were already in play in lots of different areas, lots of different ways. Now, in terms of the university admissions or things like certain courts, for example, they'll schedule a court hearing, we'll say, or scheduling an interview for the university, and they'll send out emails and whatever to the people that they're offering the course to or have applied for it. But they won't send out the letters or the emails to the white applicants, or they'll send them out the day before the day of the interview. So the letter arrives either the day of the interview or the day after. Then they'll change the location and say that they're not conducting the interviews at university. In fact, they're conducting it somewhere else, 200 miles away. But they'll give the minority applicants a fortnight or 3 weeks or a month or to get themselves organised. So come the interviews, given that so few white people were advised, then only a handful of those turn up, but a lot of them, the minority communities do turn up because they were given much longer notice, or they'll be sent an email and a letter. Now the white guy, straight white guy, calls and says, "Hey, I only got I didn't get any letter." Oh well, our records say we sent one out. maybe you just didn't notice it. We don't accept slovenly responses from people. so they can tie it up in an administrative process, a clerical bureaucratic process, and they can say we sent out the letter when they didn't. Or they can say, well, you got my email on record. Oh, our records don't show your email address. You should have made sure the record was up to date. Well, I did. I gave you the email address, says the straight white guy. Well, it's not here, says the snot-nosed, sort of woman in administration. So you get those sort of situations where they deliberately use the administrative process, such as advisories on interviews and things like that. They send out the to the wrong address, or they send out a letter, or don't send it out at all but claim they did. They've got your email on file, but they don't send you an email. So they do those sort of things. Also, a favourite is moving the interview place. So they'll say, well, the interview's to be. So they do send you an email. Say that, well, the interview's to be at college building number 3A. And so you dutifully turn up at 3, there's nobody there. The room's empty and there's no one around. And you have to frantically go around the place and then find that everyone other than the white people were advised, or white males was advised, that it's been moved from building 3A to building 10C, but all the black people were advised, but the white people weren't. Or the email saying that the letters only arrives the day after the day of the interviews. They try things like that all the time. They do that in things like the ideological courts, like the divorce courts. Increasingly, other courts they'll engage in well, we sent you out a letter. Well, I never got a letter. It's not our problem, buddy. The box on the form's been ticked. The letter was sent, and that's the end of it. If the letter got lost or something, it's not our problem. Go and talk to the postal service. And so they do these sort of things to constantly frustrate and hamper the straight white applicants. Now, the straight white applicants. Now, they view this as quite acceptable because they're only protecting marginalised communities. That's all they're doing. They're doing good work protecting marginalised communities from straight white male Hitlers, Nazis, like those straight white guys that want to do the law course. So, and if you look at if you look at the ratio of it, there are more straight white guys that are probably less sympathetic to ideological courts than not. But I don't think the difference is that great. So I'm not really sure. Like still, if you look at nearly all the legal heavies that are supporting the restorative justice, compensatory justice, activism, quotas, most of them are straight white guys. I mean, not all, but most of them are. So this idea that if you stop straight white guys from studying law, you've somehow achieved some great act of social justice, I'm not sure I get that. Given how many straight white guys are in favour of this race and gender quota nonsense. I mean, how were they, if they're supposed to be expert legal minds, how the fuck could they get sucked into this? Now, I've spoken to lawyers and even judges and their wives and husbands and all this sort of thing, and that I haven't found a judge yet that isn't in favour of things like affirmative action and restorative justice and compensatory justice, and speaking openly about it, about how marginalised certain communities are and how they're entitled to compensation for this. And they won't hear anything against it. Like if you say, well, hold on, these so-called marginalised societies were Stone Age societies when the white men came along. How have they been marginalised? They were already in the Stone Age. If anything, they're far better off now than they were then. So what's this idea that they were held back by the white? They weren't. They were Stone Age societies when the white man came along for the first time. So this idea of if they were held back or marginalised is nonsense. also a warlike, brutal society where people were lucky to live past the age of 30. Now, so what exactly is this oppression you're talking about? Yeah, but they can't. And if you even start going down that path, you're looked at with great suspicion, and suddenly you're not on the party invitation list anymore. So you have to be quite careful with it. But having a look at this in totality, there's certainly a lot of effort being put in by law schools all across the Western world to subvert this idea that you're not allowed to discriminate, because to them, in their ideological insanity, they're not discriminating. We're only protecting minorities. We're restoring. It's restorative justice that oppressed, marginalized communities, and you can see this in the say the applicants that the candidates the Biden administration puts up for judgeships, and some of them quite senior judgeships. I mean, it's terrifying to listen to what some of these people say and have said, but it's equally terrifying because they know it's wrong. So when they're there in front of the Senate review committees, they bob and weave and duck and dive and pretend that oh no, I didn't mean that. Oh no, I didn't mean that. Oh, I uphold the law. I uphold the rule of the law. And they're not. They're screaming fucking activists. That's why they're being put up for the. But the view of the globalists is if they can infect the entire legal system with activists and create a completely ideological law, not a fact-based law, then they'll have achieved a very essential part of the mayhem and the anarchy they're trying to instill in Western society. So just be aware of that all these different snide and sneaky and underhanded methods that they use to try and pretend, oh no, we only hire on merit. Oh no, we only do the best. Or, well, our law students are all good and this, and when in fact that's not the case. They're relying on the ideological insanity of lived experience and so on. You've been with Tassos today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.